Alright, so the UI is done. We're connected to the database. What we want to do now is I want to pull the questions and choices from the database. But right now we don't have any questions or choices in there. So we can easily insert questions and choices through PHPMyAdmin. Alright, so let's click on questions. We gotta log in again. So questions, and then click on insert. Alright, so I'm just going to grab a few questions. I'm going to use the W3 Schools PHP quiz. Alright, and this is actually the question that I used. So I'm going to copy that. And we'll just add that here. Okay, so the question number, I want this to be question 1, and then question 2. The answer here is this anyways. Okay, so actually I don't want this question, too many confusing characters. Okay, this is a good one. Copy this question. Alright, so we get 2 questions right here. Okay, so now we want to add our choices. Insert. And let's do 5 rows. So question number 1, the first choice is this, which is the correct choice. Since this is the correct choice, we want to change this to a 1. This is correct. Whoop. Alright. Okay, next one. You want to make sure these ignores are unchecked or it won't go through. Okay, so next, question number 1. Question number 1, it's going to be 0. Let's see. Get this. Question number 1 again. Personal home page. Okay, let's get the last one. That's question 1. And let's submit that. Incorrect integer. Oh, we submitted an empty one, so we can just delete that. Alright, so now we have all our choices for question number 1. Okay, and we can see that the correct answer is marked 1 for is correct. So let's add in the choices for question number 2. Change this to 5. Alright, so up at the top we want question number 2. Let's look at the answers here. Okay, choice 1 looks like the correct one too. Okay, so we'll say 1. That's the correct answer. Okay, question 2. Whoop. Question 2 again. Looks like there's only 3 choices for this one. And that's absolutely fine. The way we're building this application, it doesn't matter how many choices you have. You can do a true false if you want. Alright. So let's click on go. Okay, so now we have all of our choices. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to spit that out in this page, okay? And we're going to pay attention to this n equals 1 because this is going to be the number of the question. So let's go to question.php, and we want to include the database because we haven't done that yet. So let's just grab what we did on the index page. Alright, now what we want to do is open up another PHP block here to work in, and this is where we're going to do all of our queries and all of our PHP logic. When working on a production app, something bigger than this, you usually would want to have a separate page for your queries, or follow a framework like the Model View Controller framework. But this is just going to be a very simple, very minimal project, so we're just going to do it up here. Alright, so what we want to do first is we want to get the number of the question. So this is question 1. So how do we get this? We get this using a super global called get. Alright, so let's see, set question number. So we want, what is that? I didn't want that. We're going to create a variable called number, and like I said, the way that we get that value in the URL is through the get superglobal. So we can use this, and what we want to put in there is whatever we have right here, which is n. Okay, so put that here, n, and that's going to make this number accessible to us, and we can actually use it inside of our queries. Okay, so that's good, and let's actually typecast this to be an integer. So we can do that just with parentheses and the word int. Alright, so let's see, we want to run our first query. I like to kind of use this convention here. So we want to get the question, and the first thing we're going to do is create a query. Okay, so if you know MySQL, that's great. Even if you know just a little bit, because we're not doing any complex queries here. We're going to do a simple select here. So we want to say select all. We use the asterisk for all, and then from, and then the name of the table, which I put in these little backticks. Okay, the name of the table is questions. So this is a query, select all from questions. If we ran that, we would get everything that we have inside of the questions table, okay, which is our 2 questions. Alright, but we don't want to get both questions because this is just a 1 question page. So we want to say select all from questions where the question number equals this, okay, which we set into this variable. Alright, so after from questions, I'm just going to go to a new line here, and I'm going to say where question number is equal to number. Alright, so that number is coming from here. Now, all we did here was put the query into a variable. We haven't ran anything yet. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to get the result from this query. So we can do that. Let's create a variable called result, and we're going to equal that to MySQLi query. Okay, so this is the method that actually runs our query, which we're going to pass in. Okay, and we're going to say run the query or die, which is just going to cut the script down, cut it out. Alright, and then inside here we're going to pass in the error, MySQLi error, and then the line number. So that'll give us an informative error if something goes wrong. Now the last thing we want to do is assign a variable that we can use. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable called question, and I'm going to set that to result, and then fetch underscore assoc, and that's gonna give us an associative array with our data that we requested, and we can use that down here. Alright, so from the questions table we want the questions text. Alright, and we want to replace the question, this static text, with the dynamic text from the database. Okay, so let me just get rid of that, and we just want to put in some PHP tags, and we want to echo out question, and then in here we want to pass in text. Okay, so this text is coming from the database right here. Okay, so we want the text for the first question. Okay, so let's save that. Now it shouldn't change. Okay, it shouldn't change, but this is actually now coming from the database, and to prove that, let's just go in here and let's just rearrange the question. We'll say PHP stands for what? Okay, so now if we go back and reload, PHP stands for what? So it's now coming from the database. Alright, so for the choices, now the choices aren't coming from the questions table, they're coming from the choices table, so we have to do a separate query for that. Okay, so back to our question.php file. I'm actually going to copy this. Now this is going to be a little different because the question that we pulled, we had an ID for, so we only got one record of that one question. With this, we have to get all the choices for one question, so we're going to be getting multiple values. So we're going to have to assign it to a variable like we did, but we're going to have to loop over it and then spit out each iteration or each choice. Alright, so we're going to say select all from not questions but choices. Alright, and we're going to say where question number equals number. We're going to keep that there because remember, choices has a question number field. Okay, so if we go ahead and look at that, you can see that our choices table has this question number. So we only want the choices for question number 1. So it should get all of these. Alright, so that query is done. Now we want to get the results. Alright, so we're actually we're not going to use this here. Okay, but we're going to say results. No, actually I'm not even going to say results. I'm going to change this to choices. Alright, and then same thing, we're passing in this query. Alright, and then what we need to do is go through a loop down here. Okay, so what we want to do is spit it out here. So we'll say PHP. We're going to use a while loop. So we're going to say while row equals choices fetch assoc. Now we saw that already, but we had it up top because we were just getting one record. Here we need to scroll through multiple records. Alright, so while that, now instead of using curly braces, I'm going to use a colon because I want to end the line, the PHP line. Okay, and then down here we can simply say end while, and that ends the while loop. Okay, so while there's still records, that's basically what this is saying. We're saying while there's still choice records for this query, Then we want to, I'm just going to copy one of these because we only need one, because it's going to iterate 4 times, or however many choices there are. And I can actually delete all these. Alright, now what I want to do here is change these to dynamic values. Okay, we'll start with the text. So what we did, we're saying while row equals choices fetch associative array, so we can use this row variable. Okay, so in here we're going to say PHP echo row. Okay, so this is an associative array, and what I want is the text. Okay, so we have this text field, so that's what I'm going to put in here, text. Now the value I also want, I want to be dynamic, but I want it to be the ID. Okay, so the ID of the choice is what I want. So all we have to do here is say echo row and then ID. Actually, wait a minute. Alright, so now our value and the text are going to be dynamic. Okay, so let's save this and hope that it works. Okay, so we have an unexpected slash question line 46. Oh, I didn't end the PHP block right here. Semicolon and then end it. Alright, so now the question itself and the choices are coming from the database. So now that we have that done, that's going to submit to process.php, which we'll do in the next video because there's quite a bit of logic we have to do there as far as processing and redirecting. Alright, but the last thing I want to do in this video is change index. For the index file, I want the number of questions and the minutes, I want that to be dynamic so that we don't have to hard code that into the HTML. Okay, so we'll go to the index page and we're just going to do a little bit of PHP up here. Alright, so let's go ahead and what we want to do is get the total number of questions. Actually, this should be, I don't really use Notepad++ for PHP. I use Eclipse, which has a better hints, code hints, and things like that. I think in the next project we will install Eclipse or another IDE that is good for working with PHP. Alright, so what do I want to do here? I want to query just like we've been doing. And it's going to be really simple. We're just going to select all from questions. Alright, and then what I want to do is get results. Actually, set this to results. Results equals, and I can just copy from here. Okay, so basically we created the query, then we're running it here and assigning it to results. Now what we can do is we can use this results object to get the number of rows that it found. So we'll say total equals results num rows. Alright, so that'll give us the total. now that we have that total, the number of questions, we can go down here and change this 5 PHP echo echo total. Okay, so let's go ahead and reload, and now you can see that it's changed to 2 because we have two questions in our database. And as far as the minutes, I just want to change this to echo total times 0.5. Alright, and that'll give us the minutes, just an estimation. Okay, so 1 minute. I'm basically saying that one question takes 30 seconds. Alright, and you can change that logic to whatever you'd like. Alright, so looks good. In the next video we will actually we'll create the functionality to process each question and redirect us to the next question.